this case, it's got a French name, Les Abeilles. I'm not sure how to say that. But the reality is, I would call this the GE case. And the reason they won is because they were working at a General Electric plant. That's the only reason this case was successful. It wasn't really Les Abeilles versus CRA when we look at the facts. It was General Electric. And the judge did not want to argue that General Electric wasn't doing R&D at the end of the day. Okay, so 3 out of the 4 projects that were challenged related to improving the manufacturing, speeds, lines, kind of line optimization at the General Electric MABE plant in Montreal, where they made motors, okay, motors for dryers or some kind of household devices. Okay, so General Electric was a 49% shareholder of MABE, who then subcontracted to this company, but helped. Now, in here, when they went to court, they didn't provide any evidence of experimentation. I'm looking at this case and saying this case should have lost. These guys had no entitlement to the tax credits based on what they provided. However, they made a good argument about how their process would have made it R&D, so they don't need any evidence. And they seem to have won on this, so I don't know what to say. They argue that GE has a process and that there's 3 types of deviations, substitution changes, or experimental, and all of what they did went through the GE sieve of why it's experimental. Now, none of these documents were provided in the court, so we can't examine or see what the issues were. But we're saying that GE kind of vetted all these, that these were improvements. Yeah? Okay, the expert witnesses. So again, in these cases, I'm trying to figure out why this happened. And I'm seeing, okay, there's common themes here. All the guys that win have a lot of formal training seems to be the most important thing to the CRA and the judges right now. So if you didn't learn it in an accredited university or college, then assumptions like you don't know anything. Okay? So the client's expert witness has a doctoral degree in mechanical engineering. Again, we're dealing with very skilled people here. The CRA reviewer has a doctoral degree in mechanical engineering. So again, I'm saying, oh, here we go, Clash of the Titans. This should be good. Something crazy is going to happen out of this. Now, what kind of blew me away is the amount of evidence that the client provided here again. Okay, and before I jump in, let's just take a look. Let me go back and take a look at what they provided. All right. So under the documentation, let me just do it like this. Figure out where I put this. Okay. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong project. That would do it. Okay, so the client provided this development log. This is what they went into court with. And that's what I'm saying. This just tells us what was done. There's no, this is their supporting evidence. You know, that they wanted to get a 9-second cycle time. They did validation tests. I don't see anything in here. I've looked through it several times. You know, they changed some pulleys.
It's not a concurrent document. This is a document that was done after the fact.
They didn't provide any. They supposedly provided some evidence of what was done, but that wasn't included in the court case. And the judge said it wasn't really relevant of any experimentation. So I'm going to go with the judge on that. But ultimately, I'm saying that this doesn't prove anything. Like, this is not evidence of experiment or analysis. This is just a list of what was done. These are more the steps. So again, keep in mind here, this client won. This client won this case based on this evidence. And I'm trying to look at it, saying, how did this client actually win?
Better lawyer?
Well, it's actually, pretty easy when we look at who the client was. Okay? Let's take a look at General Electric. We got a head guy there. We got General Electric saying that they looked at their world knowledge. They didn't provide any evidence, but they said that they have the world knowledge base. General Electric is the only Fortune 100 company, okay, that survived the 1920 stock market crash that still exists. And they're probably the top technology company in the world. So if you're a Canadian judge, okay, do you want to go against the world's premier technology company and tell them their research isn't research? I don't know. I would say if it was anybody but GE, these guys probably would have lost. The only reason these guys probably won is that it's General Electric. And that's not fair, in my opinion. You shouldn't be at a level where you don't have to keep documentation. Yes?
Was it General Electric that filed, or?
No, sorry. It was a company called the Subcontractor. But in court, the testimony that the judge weighted was that they looked at the General Electric knowledge base, and it didn't come in. I think I'm jumping ahead a slide. Let me just talk about this. So what the judge first said is they let into their description and saying that in the case of RIS Christie, which is a whole other interesting case. In the case of RIS Christie, they lost at the Tax Court of Canada and won at the appeal level because the engineer had died in between, and his partner, the financial guy, swore under oath that there was all kinds of evidence that they couldn't find because he was dead, and the judge gave them the benefit of the doubt. Okay? So it's so when you take those, there's a long time ago, but I remember that case because I thought that's a really interesting case. That's how far the courts will go. Now I see judges quoting that decision, maybe not knowing the full extent of it, and saying that, well, we don't actually need evidence. Okay? Though it's the surefire way is to have evidence, it's not necessary. That if you have a plausible explanation for not having any evidence, then I could base it on the credibility of the witnesses. And if the witness is very credible, i.e. they got a PhD and they work with General Electric, maybe I shouldn't challenge anything that they say. Whatever they say, we just take it as the honest truth, and they don't need to have any evidence. I don't know. That's what I'm reading from this, and again, I'm offended at the ones that should have got it and didn't, and I'm equally offended at the ones who got it and shouldn't. I don't think the rules should work that way. Okay, so he gives examples, and I think this is interesting because they're saying the question of how much evidence do I need to keep evidence is a common question. You see it all the time. So they talk about examples where notes are destroyed or whatever, and basically saying that it's permissible for the judge to infer that the research was conducted without any evidence, just based on the credibility of the witnesses. Don't get me wrong, I like it when the taxpayer wins. I would just like it to be for valid reasons. Huh?
Was it about qualifications, or was it about the official designation that they were engineers?
He didn't say.
We trust engineers like we trust doctors, they never lie.
He didn't say that. He just said credibility was the only. He didn't say why that evidence was credible. I'm inferring that it was all these. I think it was all these things stacked together. You put very skilled people in with a lot of background that probably understand what R&D is if they got PhDs in engineering, and you've got the premier research company in the world attesting in court that they think it is. Again, if it was anyone else, I'm saying I don't think there's a lot of things to learn from this case on a positive nature. I wish there was. Okay? The judge then went on and he talked about what's the role of the RTA. And this is reiterated over and over again. And you know what? This is a good one because the RTAs don't seem to understand this either. That when you go to court, the judge doesn't care what the RTA thinks. The judge only cares what the RTA can prove. Because this is science. Your opinion with evidence is a scientific opinion. Your opinion with no evidence is nothing. It's an unsupported opinion. So the RTA thinking that it should be within standard practice is not enough. Courts are taking it to the level of the IRS. No, show me where it's within standard practice. Show me the solution. Okay, there's a solution. You're right, it's within standard practice. Prove it. Don't think it. What you think doesn't matter in the court. It's what you can prove. Okay? On both sides. So the courts have seemed to be harder with the CRA in this case than they were with the claimant. This is one where I think the claimant should have actually been treated more harshly than the CRA. So they talk about CRAs guided more by personal guidelines. The CRA talked about that they didn't keep adequate documentation and all these things, and the judge is saying, I don't need documentation. I just need to know if there's technological advancement. Okay? So the CRA's the judges aren't following any of the CRA criteria or requirements or anything. So the judge's testimony is that you'll accept oral testimony of a credible witness. Says it would have been useful to have expert evidence focused on the issues. Like it would have been cool to have some evidence, but we didn't. So instead of that, we'll just take verbal evidence from the researchers by way of oral testimony. And again, I'm saying this is a case that I think is going in the wrong direction. I like taxpayers to win, but I like them to win for the right reasons. So again, what am I going to walk away from this? Saying I don't really know what to think about this case at the end of the day. Okay, so again, the CRAs could probably learn something here, that when you send a technology advisor to court, they have to back their opinions with science, not just with personal opinions that, oh, they should have looked harder. No, show us that you looked harder and you found the solution, or found something similar, or do exactly what the client's supposed to do, like a scientist would, and use science to refute the argument. It's really the way it should be done.
Do you think that it reached the same result in Alberta as opposed to Quebec?
Well,
Cultural differences?
I'm not sure, really. You know what? That sounds funny, but the judge quoted right at the start, he said that this company is keeping jobs in Canada that would otherwise be in Mexico, and he said that right in the court case. So, and I'm saying that should be irrelevant. That shouldn't affect SR&ED. I don't know. Like I say, I can't guess what's in the judge's mind. I can only extrapolate based on the evidence of what I've seen, what I think happened, and I'm saying that I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't like the cases that are winning, and I don't like the cases that are losing. And I think that there's a lack of direction at the highest levels, as illustrated so far, that's causing these problems and actually perpetuating them and making them worse. That there's a lack of direction at the highest levels where we're in need of it the most. Yeah.